Welcome back. You're watching Storyboard. Year on year, the most discussed topic at Cannes Lions is the impact of technology on creativity. But with each passing year, creative shops are disappearing from the Cannes beaches and the Croisette. The most visible is the presence of technology companies everywhere at Cannes Lions, and they're also picking up some of the most prominent awards at the festival. How does Sir John Hegarty, founder and creative BBH, look at this change? We find out in this chat.
We are on BBH's board, Bettina, and we have a very special guest with us here today, Sir John Hegarty. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
This must be your nth year at Cannes Lions, isn't it?
Yes, I have been coming for a number of years and have seen quite a few changes. You know, I mean, it's almost now. You know, we were just saying earlier, it's almost now a technology. Conference rather than, or festival rather than the creative festival, which
yes,
I think
it feels like you know, CES plus the creatives, doesn't it? Because there is technology everywhere, whether it is the brands that are advertising at Cannes Lions or you know, the kind of work that is winning at Cannes Lions. So what do you think of this change?
Well, you know, I'm always, you know, I think technology and creativity have always gone hand in hand, but you know, I try and say to people, you know, technology enables opportunity. It's creativity that creates value. Technology is just the means by which I can communicate and the means by which I can talk to people, but actually it's the message within that that is fundamentally important. And I do think Cannes is in danger of losing that sense of it's the creativity that we've come here to celebrate. Obviously, you know, there are many ways of communicating with people, but ultimately, you know, a big idea is what people need. And people keep saying this, but they talk about it, but then don't do it, which is rather peculiar.
Are you happy with the overpowering presence of technology that has increased over the past few years?
Well, you know, actually, I do love technology. I mean, I try and partake of it. I use it. You know, one forgets that, you know, the invention of the moving camera meant that the cinema industry was born. That was an amazing piece of technology. Television is an amazing piece of technology that I can project a picture into somebody's home. So we've always been about technology. But as I say, I think today the emphasis has moved too much onto the technology and not enough onto the creativity that employs that technology.
Technology taking over advertising, is that what you feel, especially at Cannes Lions?
Well, it's, you know, it's an opportunity for
Is it taking over?
But is it taking over? I probably would say it is taking over. There's an over-focus on it rather than an employment of it. And as I said, technology enables opportunity. So that's brilliant. But it's the creativity that will create the value.
You just mentioned how technology creates opportunity. You know, can you give or share instances where technology has been the handmaiden for creativity?
Well, you know, the other thing I always say is that advertising is 80% idea. It's also 80% technique. It's also 80% craft. You know, so it always, in whatever you're doing, technology plays a fundamental part. You know, the cinema industry was created out of technology. The fact that I could, you know, tell a story without using words was amazing, because I could just close in on somebody's face and that face would tell you what they were feeling and thinking. So you're always using technology all the time. But at the moment, most of the technology is a delivery medium. It's not a creative medium. So is social media creative? Or does it employ creativity to be part of a message? And I think really a lot of social media employs creativity to be part of the message. And we've got to start somewhere with the idea, and that's the most important.
But there are no examples where, you know, it has played a handmaiden to creativity.
Well, but you can't separate them. You know, when you say it's a handmaid, it's you know, that's why I'm trying to get people to stop for a moment and say, you know, without technology, all we'd be able to do is tell each other a story, sing a song, and paint a picture with a bit of stick. And even that, and that would be it. But the invention of the paintbrush meant you could paint a better picture. Whoever invented the piano meant that you could write a piece of music in a more interesting way. All those things are technology. It isn't as though suddenly technology has appeared. What I think is happening is that we're seeing an explosion of technology and opportunity to such an extent that we're forgetting that actually it's the message that really matters. And so people kind of talk about you know, having a social media campaign, and you go, well, fine, that's brilliant, I love it. What are you going to say? How are you going to link your brand together? And I think, again, you know, I sort of say principles remain, practices change. And I think the principles of marketing, the principles of communication remain exactly the same. The means by which I can communicate that have changed. And it's just important to understand that, not to get principles and practices confused. And I think that's what's happening today.
Every brand is talking about creating content online. Do you think it is more difficult to create a 30-seconder as compared to like a 5 to 10 minute content video?
Oh, of course it is. I mean, there's no question. I mean, you know, our ability as communicators to take a complicated message, a complicated idea and thought, reduce it down to kind of, you know, 60 seconds or under is genius as a skill, absolute genius. And we're losing that. And we suddenly think the answer in a busy world is to make things longer. I've never known anything better to be longer. Actually, a lot of people would say to you, you know, there's a great quote of the philosopher Pascal, who I'm, again, always using, when he wrote to a friend with a letter, and he said at the end of it, my apologies for this letter being so long. Had I more time, it would have been shorter. And it was Pascal who said it. People dismiss it. It was Pascal. But, you know, it's a real skill. And, you know, I always imagine a Martian coming down to Earth and having explained what's going on. And, you know, and he'd be told that people are very busy and they're rushing round and they're doing things. Oh, well, I see, okay. And then he'd be told, what's this thing called advertising? And somebody would say, well, that's that industry where they take complicated messages and reduce them down to sort of short, profound sound bites. He'd go, oh, they've got a future. But no, we're going in the opposite direction. We're creating all this stuff called content. You know, that is anybody watching it? I don't have time. We've forgotten the genius of reduction, the power of reduction. And we've got to remember, even though there's a helicopter behind me, that we've got to remember that, you know, to a large extent in people's lives, brands occupy about that much
space. Yeah.
Really, to be honest with you. It's about their family, their football team, the people they love, the people they don't love, worrying about the future, food, whatever it might be. You know, we occupy about that much. How do we get people to go from that much to that much?
What would a 21-year-old John Hegarty be like in today's agency setup?
Well, I hope he'd be much the same as he was when he was 21, which was challenging, provocative, forcing his point of view out there, you know, trying things all the time, creating all the time, on the basis that eventually something is going to happen. But learning too. The other thing I think is really disappointing about young people coming into our industry today, they don't know what went before. They have any sense of the history of advertising. And we must be the only creative industry that behaves like that. You go into any other creative industry, you know, you want to be a painter, you want to be an architect, you want to be a filmmaker, you want to study opera or fashion. You would know about the history of those industries. You would understand them. You'd know who Mies van der Rohe was. You'd know who Frank Lloyd Wright was. We as an industry forget too quickly, and we don't therefore learn. You know, I'm looking at work and people say, you've got to see this as something amazing. And I go, did you see the Cannes Lion that won in 1984? It was really outstanding. It was better than that. No, what was that? You know, it's ridiculous. Imagine saying to an architect today, have you seen Frank Lloyd Wright's building? Who? You'd laugh, wouldn't you? But our industry, they don't know. It's ridiculous. My concern is, you know, I do say to creative people, how many have sat down and watched the 50 Grand Prix Lions for film over the last 50 years? How many of you watched it? It takes about an hour. I'm not asking you to do a lot. And it's stunning how few have. You should do it. Part of your education. You'll learn so much.
So having asked that question, what is the most important quality that you look in a creative person while hiring into your agency today?
Well, there are a huge number of things. You know, the ability to have an idea, taste, but in the end, you know, I love enthusiasm. Enthusiasm to me is one of the most profound things that we possess, and I think our industry, more than any other industry, survives on that. It's called energy, you know. And a friend of mine, he's a poet and he understands word, and he talks about this a lot. And of course, he said to me, you know, he talks about God is just energy. That's all God is. That's why religious paintings had light coming out of them and hearts and all that. So he said, John, it's just energy. And he was talking about enthusiasm, and he said to me, you know, John, the origin of the word enthusiasm, the etymology of the word enthusiasm, is it comes from the Greek, and it means to be with God.
Thank you, Sir John Hegarty. Thanks for speaking to us.
Great stuff. Lovely talking to you.
Lovely talking.
With that, it's a wrap on Storyboard this week. You can catch all our content on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. Thanks for watching, and we'll have more interesting conversations in the weeks to follow. Thanks for watching again, and we'll be back same time next week. See you soon.